Hello there, this is Marcus, and I want to share with you a project I did with my Intermediate Advanced and Mastery Music Technology students. Now before I do that, I think it's important you understand how my class works. First, I teach music technology, where we create and digitally edit music. I teach 4 levels: beginning, intermediate, advanced, and mastery. My beginning students use GarageBand, a program that looks like this, and my intermediate and advanced and mastery students use a program called Logic Pro X, a program that looks similar but is different in a lot of different ways. So the project that they had to do was to create a tutorial or a user guide for the beginning music tech students next year when they start using Logic Pro. This guide should be not a tutorial necessarily of how to use Logic Pro, but more of a transition guide for those that are already familiar with GarageBand and how some of those features are different or have changed or sometimes even stay the same in Logic Pro. We started by doing a really fun, simple assignment where they had to create a small, short song in GarageBand. Now, most of the students haven't used GarageBand in over a year, so it was kind of fun for them to go back and remember the limitations that GarageBand has without all the advanced features. Then I pulled up Kugel on the overhead projector, and we had a class discussion on all of the different features of GarageBand. After going through and doing a project on GarageBand, they came up with this list, and then we copied and pasted this list and decided to discuss what was new or different in Logic Pro than GarageBand, and so we had a comparison and contrast here on Kugel. I then showed the class examples of what I was looking for. And I showed them different examples using different types of tools. I showed them that they created a document as if they were using Google Documents. I showed them PowerPoints that they could do with Microsoft PowerPoint or with Google Slides. I even showed them a website that they could create to explain the differences between GarageBand and Logic Pro. I explained to my students that all the examples I showed them were for GarageBand tutorials specifically, and that they would need to create their own version of a transition guide for the students going into intermediate tech, going from GarageBand to Logic Pro. I did create a rubric to go along with this project. I created it using the rubric builder. This is a feature of eClass. eClass is the program, the online program that Gwinnett County uses for their teacher websites, and it has the ability for us to create rubrics that we can link to assignments. So in this rubric, I have the criteria that the students had to touch on for their assignment, the different features and aspects that both GarageBand and Logic Pro have, and then there are 2 categories. One, they get full points if they explain the topic with a visual example, and they get 3 out of 5 points if they just explain the topic. I also created a checklist using Google Docs that touched on all 20 of these things that I wanted the students to cover. That way they could go through and they could keep up with the various things that they had already touched on and already done, so that they were sure to make sure they hit all 20 of those learning objectives. During the implementation phase of my project, everything seemed to go well. I thought the students would need more time to research some of the aspects of Logic Pro that they had forgotten, or maybe even GarageBand features that they didn't remember. But they actually seemed to remember most of that pretty easily. They did need more time than what I had expected, and a lot of that was because of formatting for their artifact, or taking screenshots and editing the screenshots to use in their artifact. So I gave them a few extra days to work on that. I recommended to them to use the Adobe Creative Cloud to do the editing of their screenshots, but they actually told me about Preview, that in Preview you can draw arrows and circles and point out things, and it's really useful for things exactly like what they were doing. And because it's an app on the computer, they didn't need to upload things, edit, and then re-download them, so it actually saved them some time in that regard. For improvements with this project in the future, there's really only 2 things I've thought about here. One is most of the students did screencasts, or they did a document of some type for their artifact, for their guide. I was hoping to see some more websites or even PowerPoints, but it seemed like they felt like the screencast and the doc were the two easiest artifacts to create. So I'd like to think about a way to maybe encourage them to do different things, other things. But that seemed kind of minor. They got the content and they were able to demonstrate the mastery of their knowledge of the features of both apps. So they accomplished what they needed to. The other thing I have to consider is that this year I had all of my advanced classes, my intermediate, advanced, and mastery classes do this project. Next year, the intermediate class will still be able to do this project because they were in the beginning class this year, so they can do their own version of this next year. But my advanced and mastery will have already done this project, so what will I have them do? And I'm debating between having them go back and revise their transition guides, or maybe even create an advanced features guide of the more advanced features of Logic Pro X. So I've got to give that some thought. Overall, I thought this project was successful. The students seemed to enjoy the project. They seemed to have fun with it. It granted my upper level students like some perspective and remembering what it was like to deal with with GarageBand that had less features. And also it provides a resource, a tool for my upcoming intermediate music tech class. Hopefully that'll make the transition at the beginning of next year go a little smoother. So thank you for listening to this, and I appreciate it. Good luck to all of you on your projects as well.